Have you ever felt completely drained after dealing with people or situations that pull at your emotions? Have you noticed how sometimes, without even realizing it, you give away your energy and let others control how you feel? The truth is, your peace and your power belong to you, and no one else should have that kind of control. It's time to stop reacting to everyone and everything around you and start taking back your life. This video will show you exactly how to detach from emotional chaos and reclaim your power in a way that actually works in real life. You'll learn how to spot what triggers your stress, how to protect your energy, and how to focus only on what really matters. You'll discover practical steps to stop letting other people's opinions dictate your mood and choices. By the end, you'll understand how to stay calm, confident, and in control, even when the world around you is chaotic. This isn't theory, this is a guide to taking real action and owning your emotional freedom starting today. Chapter 1. Understand your emotions by noticing what triggers your stress. You know, when people talk about emotional detachment, they often think it means becoming cold or shutting people out, but that is not the goal. Emotional detachment is the ability to stay steady inside yourself while the world around you keeps moving. It is the ability to understand what is happening inside you and respond in a way that protects your energy and your peace. And it begins with one thing that most people never take seriously enough: understanding your emotions by noticing what triggers your stress. Most people walk through life reacting without thinking. Someone says something harsh and they take it personally. Someone ignores them and they feel hurt. A plan falls apart and they feel defeated. They think these reactions just happen, but nothing just happens. There is a reason behind every feeling. There is a moment when your body tightens. There is a moment when your thoughts speed up. There is a moment when your mood shifts. And until you understand those moments, you cannot detach. You cannot take back your power. You stay controlled by the outside world instead of taking control of your inner world. Understanding your emotions is not about judging yourself. It is about studying yourself. Think about how often you rush through your day without taking a moment to check what is going on inside. Your chest gets tight. Your patience gets low. Your mind feels full. You feel pressure from people around you. You feel overwhelmed by expectations. You feel unseen or unheard. But instead of pausing, you push through. And every time you push through without understanding yourself, you drift further away from emotional control. If you want to detach in a healthy way, you must learn to notice what raises your stress. You must pay attention to what makes your body tense and your thoughts heavy. You must pay attention to the conversations that drain you. You must notice the actions from others that make you feel small. You must notice the situations that throw you off balance. This type of awareness is not dramatic. It is simple. It is quiet. It is honest. And it builds real power. Start by paying attention to your first reaction when something stressful happens. Your first reaction says everything. Your body sends signals long before your mind tries to explain what you feel. Maybe your shoulders tighten when someone criticizes you. Maybe your breathing becomes quick when someone speaks to you with disrespect. Maybe you feel heat in your face when someone tries to control you. These signs matter. They tell you that something inside you is being pushed. Most people ignore these signals, but these signals are the key to understanding your emotions. Once you notice these reactions, take a moment to ask yourself what the real trigger is. Many people get upset at the wrong part of the situation. They get angry at the person, but the real trigger is the feeling of being misunderstood. They feel hurt by the comment, but the real trigger is fear of not being good enough. They feel stressed by the situation, but the real trigger is the pressure they put on themselves to please everyone. Emotional detachment begins when you stop blaming everything outside you and start understanding everything inside you. When you understand the true trigger, you gain power. You can choose how to respond. You can choose how to protect your energy. You can choose how to move forward. Stress becomes easier to manage when you know why it appears. You no longer feel controlled by it. You no longer feel overwhelmed by situations that used to shake you. You begin to feel stronger because you finally see what is actually happening inside you, not the surface situation, but the deeper reaction that you used to ignore. Understanding your emotions also means paying attention to patterns. Stress does not appear randomly. It shows up in similar moments. It shows up with certain people. It shows up during certain conversations. It shows up when you are tired, hungry, or stretched too thin. It shows up when you feel unsupported. It shows up when you feel. You must track these patterns. Like someone who wants to improve their life, you cannot change what you refuse to face, and you cannot detach from something you cannot identify. The best way to notice these patterns is to slow down during your day. Take a few seconds before responding to anything that makes you uncomfortable. Notice your breathing. Notice what your mind is saying. Notice how your body feels. This simple pause creates space between you and the stress. In that small space, you gain clarity. In that small space, you gain choice. And choice is power. The moment you choose how to respond is the moment you begin to detach. Many people do not understand how powerful it is to observe themselves. They think self-awareness is a small skill, but self-awareness is a blueprint for emotional freedom. The more you understand why something affects you, the less it controls you. When you understand your triggers, you stop reacting without direction. You stop fighting battles that drain your energy. You stop carrying emotions that are not yours to carry. You stop explaining yourself to people who do not value your effort. You begin to live from a place of strength, instead of a place of fear or pressure. It takes courage to study your emotions, because you might discover truths you have avoided for years. You might realize that certain people drain you more than they support you. You might find that you have been trying too hard to impress people who do not notice your effort. You might discover that you have ignored your own needs for too long. You might see that your stress often comes from trying to live up to expectations that were never yours in the first place. These truths are not comfortable, but they are necessary. Without honesty, there is no growth. Without clarity, there is no detachment. Without understanding, there is no power. Once you begin to understand your emotions, you can start separating what is yours from what belongs to others. Many people carry emotional weight handed to them by others. They carry guilt that is not theirs. They carry blame they did not earn. They carry fears shaped by someone else's behavior. They carry stress created by expectations they never agreed to. When you understand your triggers, you begin to release all the weight you never needed to carry. You learn to say, "This stress is not mine," and that simple sentence holds a lot of strength. Emotional detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop allowing stress to control you. It means you stop reacting to every opinion or situation. It means you understand what is happening inside you before you respond to what is happening around you. This level of control makes you calm. It makes you confident. It makes you steady. People will notice that you no longer react the same way. You will no longer break down under pressure. You will no longer feel pulled in every direction. You will no longer feel defeated by the smallest problems. You will begin to walk through life with more stability, because you finally understand yourself. When you notice your triggers, you also learn where you need growth. If criticism stresses you, you might need to work on self-confidence. If someone's silence stresses you, you might need to work on emotional security. If change stresses you, you might need to work on flexibility. Stress is not the enemy. Stress is a teacher, and when you pay attention, it teaches you everything you need to improve your life. The truth is, emotional detachment is not something you force. It is something you grow into. It starts with understanding yourself. It starts with noticing your stress. It starts with paying attention to every moment that shakes your peace. When you do this consistently, your emotional control grows, your mental clarity grows, your inner strength grows, and slowly, you take back your power from the world around you. You deserve to live with emotional independence. You deserve to feel steady, no matter what others say or do. You deserve to protect your peace without guilt, but you cannot reach this level until you understand your emotions. That is the first step. That is the foundation. When you master this, everything else becomes easier. Your reactions become calmer. Your decisions become clearer. Your life becomes lighter. You begin to feel in charge again. And that is the beginning of true emotional power. Chapter 2. Create distance by stepping back before reacting to pressure. You know, when pressure shows up in your life, it rarely arrives with a warning. It comes through people who speak without thinking. It comes through situations that push you faster than you can handle. It comes through moments where you feel expected to respond instantly, even when your mind is not ready. And most people react right away because that is what they have always done. But reacting without space is the fastest way to lose emotional control. If you want to take back your power, you must learn to create distance by stepping back before reacting to pressure. That small step back is not weakness. It is discipline. It is strength. It is maturity. And it changes everything. Think about the times you felt pressured. Someone questioned your ability. Someone raised their voice. Someone gave you an unfair comment. Someone tried to rush you. In those moments, your mind tightens and your body moves into defense. You feel an urge to reply quickly, as if saying something right away will protect you. But quick reactions rarely help. Quick reactions usually come from fear, stress, or confusion. They often create more problems instead of solving anything. When you step back, even for a few seconds, you give your mind room to understand the situation clearly, instead of reacting blindly. Stepping back does not mean walking away in silence every time. It means giving yourself enough space to choose your best response. It means refusing to let someone else's pressure control how you think or act. You cannot do this if you jump into every moment emotionally. You can only do it when you learn to pause. That pause is where you grow. That pause is where you turn pressure into clarity. Many people feel uncomfortable with pausing because they think silence makes them look weak or unsure. But silence is not weakness. Silence is reflection. Silence is strategy. Silence is you telling yourself that you will not act until you understand the situation. You are not avoiding the moment. You are guiding it. You are shaping it. You are deciding how you want it to go. That is what strong people do. They do not rush. They do not panic. They create distance before they respond. When you step back, something powerful happens. You separate yourself from the emotional weight of the moment. You begin to see what is actually happening instead of what you feared was happening. You begin to understand why someone is acting the way they are. You begin to see what message your emotions are trying to send you. Pressure feels overwhelming only when you stand too close to it. Distance gives you perspective. You stop feeling trapped inside the problem and start seeing your options. Creating distance also protects you from reacting based on old habits. When you live on autopilot, you repeat the same emotional reactions again and again. Maybe you get angry quickly. Maybe you shut down. Maybe you try to defend yourself immediately. These reactions come from habit, not from clarity. Stepping back interrupts those habits. It forces your mind to slow down. It gives you a moment to consider what you want your life to look like. When you step back, you stop being pulled by pressure and start leading yourself. Notice what happens when you pause before reacting. Your breathing slows down. Your thoughts become steadier. You begin to ask yourself simple but important questions. Is this worth my energy? Is this a real threat or just discomfort? Is this something I need to respond to or something I can ignore? Is this about me or someone else's frustration? These questions are quiet, they are simple, but they pull you out of emotional chaos and bring you into emotional stability. Pressure often tricks you into believing you must respond fast. But most situations do not require speed. They require clarity. When you give yourself a moment, you will often notice that your first emotional reaction was not the best one. You may realize that the situation is not as serious as it felt in the moment. You may see that the other person is reacting from their own stress. You may understand that the problem is temporary and does not deserve a strong reaction from you. You may even feel the pressure lose its intensity because you did not feed it with immediate emotion. Stepping back before reacting is also a sign of self-respect. You respect your peace enough not to let others disturb it easily. You respect your energy enough not to waste it on things that do not support your growth. You respect your mind enough not to overload it with unnecessary reactions. You begin to value your inner world more than the outside noise. This sense of self-respect creates a new style of living. You begin to move with intention instead of impulses. Pressure from others often comes because they want you to handle their emotions. They want you to match their speed. They want you to carry their frustration. But that is not your responsibility. You are responsible for your emotional stability, not theirs. When you step back, you refuse to take on emotional weight that does not belong to you. You allow the other person to deal with their own feelings while you protect your own. That is healthy. That is balance. That is emotional independence. Another benefit of creating distance is giving yourself time to choose the version of yourself you want to show. Anyone can react quickly. Anyone can argue without thinking. Anyone can let pressure take control. But reacting with thought and awareness is what sets you apart. It shows you are building emotional strength. It shows you are shaping your character. It shows you are choosing a higher level of self-control. You are telling yourself that you deserve to approach every moment from a place of power. Think about people you admire. They do not rush into arguments. They do not break under pressure. They do not act out of panic. They take a breath. They observe. They think. And then they respond with strength. This is not something they were born with. This is a developed skill. You can build the same skill. It starts with one simple habit: creating distance before reacting. If someone speaks to you harshly, you do not have to answer right away. You can wait a moment, breathe, and respond when your mind is ready. If you get a message that upsets you, you do not have to reply instantly. You can take time to understand your feelings. If a situation feels overwhelming, you do not have to handle everything immediately. You can step back and organize your thoughts. These small actions seem simple, but they transform your emotional life. Many conflicts, arguments, and misunderstandings disappear when you give yourself time. You avoid saying things you will regret later. You avoid making decisions under pressure. You avoid letting emotions speak louder than reason. You avoid turning small issues into big problems. The space you create protects you from unnecessary pain. Stepping back also helps you see what pressure does to your mind. You might notice that you think more negatively when you are stressed. You might see that your confidence drops quickly in heated situations. You might realize that certain tones of voice or behaviors from others affect you more than you thought. This awareness helps you prepare for future moments. You begin to build mental strength because you understand what challenges your emotional balance. Creating distance also makes you better at communication. When you are calm, your words become clearer. Your tone becomes steady. Your message becomes stronger. People take you more seriously because you do not act from emotional instability. You speak from a place of control, and that changes how others respond to you. You no longer match the chaos around you. You set the tone. You guide the direction of the conversation. That is how leaders communicate. That is how grounded people live. Over time, stepping back becomes a natural part of your life. You begin to feel less affected by pressure. You begin to feel more confident during tough moments. You begin to feel responsible for your reactions instead of controlled by them. You begin to trust yourself more because you know you will not act impulsively. This kind of self-trust builds emotional freedom. Emotional detachment is not about avoiding life. It is about facing life with clarity. When you step back before reacting, you protect your peace, your time, and your energy. You separate what is urgent from what is just noise. You learn that most pressure is not as powerful as it feels in the moment. You learn that your calm is stronger than someone else's intensity. You learn that you can shape the outcome of any situation simply by giving yourself space. This habit requires practice. It requires reminding yourself that you do not owe anyone an instant reaction. It requires reminding yourself that your peace matters. It requires reminding yourself that pressure loses power when you step back from it. Each time you do this, you grow emotionally stronger. You build a mindset that can handle anything, because it is no longer controlled by sudden urges. Stepping back is not running away. It is choosing a better response. It is choosing stability over chaos. It is choosing clarity over confusion. It is choosing strength over impulse. Every time you choose to pause, you take back more of your power. And when you master this, you begin to live with emotional freedom that many people never experience. This is your path. This is your step forward. Creating distance before reacting will not only protect you, it will elevate you. It will help you become someone who can stand strong under pressure, someone who can make thoughtful choices, someone who can face challenges with a calm mind and a steady heart. That is how you take back control. That is how you take back your power. Chapter 3. Take charge by choosing who deserves your energy. You know, one of the most important parts of emotional detachment is learning how to take charge of your energy. Your energy is not unlimited. Your time is not endless. Your attention is not meant for everyone. Yet many people go through life giving pieces of themselves to anyone who asks for it. They give attention to people who drain them. They give time to people who do not value it. They give effort to relationships that bring them nothing but emotional weight. And then they wonder why they feel tired, unfocused, and overwhelmed. If you want to take back your power, you must choose who deserves your energy. You must take charge of where your emotional resources go and who gets access to them. Most people never stop and think about this. They respond to everyone. They help everyone. They entertain everyone. They explain themselves to everyone. They allow anyone to influence their emotions. But your energy shapes your life. Whoever gets your energy gets a piece of your future. That is why you must decide who is allowed into your mental and emotional space. When you do not make this decision yourself, the world makes it for you, and the world does not always choose well. Taking charge of your energy begins with noticing who affects your emotional state. You must pay attention to the people who raise your stress and the ones who lower it. Pay attention to the people who leave you feeling better and the ones who leave you feeling drained. Pay attention to the people who make you feel encouraged and the ones who make you doubt yourself. This type of awareness shows you where your energy is going and what impact those people have on your mindset. You cannot protect your energy if you do not know who affects it. There are people who support you without demanding too much. There are people who understand you without making you explain yourself. There are people who care about your growth. There are people who want you to succeed. These people deserve your energy. They add something to your life. They make you feel steady. They help you stay aligned with your goal. When you share your energy with people like this, it grows. It strengthens you instead of draining you. Then there are people who only take from you. They want attention but never offer support. They want your help, but never help you in return. They want your time but do not value it. They want you to listen to their problems but ignore your feelings. They want you to adjust yourself for their comfort, but refuse to adjust anything for yours. These people drain your energy. They leave you tired. They push you off balance. When you give too much of your energy to these people, you lose the strength you need for your own life. Taking charge means being honest about who falls into which group. It does not mean judging people harshly. It means understanding the effect they have on you. Some people are simply not good for your emotional stability. Some people do not bring peace into your life. Some people make small problems feel bigger. Some people make you question yourself. You cannot grow when your energy is tied to people who constantly pull you down. Emotional detachment becomes necessary when someone repeatedly asks for more than you can give. Choosing who deserves your energy also requires understanding your goals. Not everyone is meant to walk with you on your journey. Some people prefer the older version of you, a version that was easier to control, easier to manipulate, easier to influence. When you grow emotionally, some people feel uncomfortable because they can no longer shape your reactions. They can no longer provoke you the way they used to. They can no longer expect you to carry their problems. Growth changes your connections, and you must be ready to choose what supports your future instead of what comforts your past. There will always be people who expect you to give them more energy than they deserve. They may pressure you emotionally. They may guilt trip you. They may act offended when you protect your boundaries. These reactions reveal that they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. When you take charge of your energy, people who depended on your emotional availability may not like it, but your peace is not up for negotiation. Your emotional stability deserves protection, even if others do not understand it. One of the strongest ways to take charge of your energy is to stop giving access to people who show you disrespect. Disrespect comes in many forms. It can be ignoring your feelings. It can be talking down to you. It can be minimizing your effort. It can be acting as if your time does not matter. When someone shows you disrespect repeatedly, you must pay attention. That pattern tells you that this person does not value your emotional investment. And when someone does not value your energy, they do not deserve it. Another way to take charge of your energy is to notice who is consistent. Consistency is a form of care. When someone is only present when they need something, they are not supporting you. They are using you. You must choose people who show up without always asking for something in return. You must choose people who value you, not just what you can offer. When your energy only flows in one direction, you become emotionally exhausted, and exhaustion weakens your ability to think clearly and respond wisely. You also need to be aware of people who bring chaos into your life. These are individuals who constantly start arguments, create unnecessary drama, or turn small issues into major problems. They drain your emotional resources because they are unpredictable. Being around them forces you to stay alert, tense and cautious. This type of energy destroys your inner stability. You must step back from people who do not take responsibility for their actions. You cannot build emotional strength around people who constantly create emotional storms. One of the most liberating decisions you can make is choosing peace over people. When someone constantly disrupts your peace, you owe it to yourself to reevaluate their access. Your emotional health cannot grow in an environment where someone else's behavior keeps you stressed. You cannot develop strength when you are tied to people who refuse to grow. You cannot build focus when you are surrounded by emotional noise. Peace is not a reward. Peace is a requirement for growth. And people who regularly disturb your peace do not deserve your energy. Taking charge of your energy also means recognizing when you are giving too much. Some people naturally give more than they receive. They do it because they care. They do it because they want to help. They do it because helping feels natural. But giving too much leads to emotional fatigue. You begin to feel unnoticed. You begin to feel unappreciated. You begin to feel worn down. This does not mean you stop giving altogether. It means you give with awareness. You give with balance. You give with balance. You give without harming your own emotional well-being. You must also learn to take charge of your energy by reducing emotional access. Not everyone needs to know your thoughts. Not everyone needs to know your plans. Not everyone needs to hear your feelings. When you share too much with people who do not support you, you weaken your emotional boundaries. You make yourself vulnerable in ways that do not benefit you. Protecting your emotional access is not selfish. It is smart. It allows you to stay steady without being influenced by people who do not have your best interests in mind. There is power in being selective. When you choose who deserves your energy, you create space for better people to enter your life. You open room for healthier relationships. You give yourself the chance to feel supported instead of drained. Your energy is one of your greatest tools. It shapes your motivation. It shapes your decisions. It shapes your daily habits. When your energy is given to the wrong people, everything in your life becomes hard. When your energy is protected and directed wisely, everything becomes clearer.
You also need to understand that your energy affects your future. Every conversation, every relationship, every interaction either supports your growth or takes away from it. When you give energy to people who uplift you, you grow stronger. When you give energy to people who pull you down, you slow your progress. This is why taking charge of your energy is part of emotional detachment. You detach from what weakens you. You detach from what confuses you. You detach from what makes you feel small. You detach so you can rise. Taking charge of your energy is a daily practice. It requires paying attention to how you feel after every interaction. Do you feel calm or drained? Do you feel encouraged or frustrated? Do you feel lighter or heavier? Your emotional reactions tell you who deserves your energy. Trust those reactions. They are not random. They are signals from your inner world. As you grow, you will realize that not every person is meant to stay in your life. Some people come to teach you lessons about boundary. Some people come to teach you the importance of self-respect. Some people show you what you no longer want to tolerate. And once you learn those lessons, you must choose your future over your past. You must choose your growth over your old habits. You must choose your peace over familiar chaos. When you finally take charge of who deserves your energy, you begin to feel a shift. You feel lighter because you are no longer carrying emotional loads that were never yours. You feel stronger because you are investing your energy where it creates progress. You feel clearer because your mind is not tangled in unnecessary stress. You feel independent because your emotions are no longer shaped by people who do not value you. You feel more like yourself because you are finally protecting your space. This is how emotional detachment becomes real. It begins with honest choices about where your energy goes. When you decide that your peace matters, your life changes. When you decide that you deserve respect, your relationships change. When you decide that you are worthy of emotional balance, your future change. Choosing who deserves your energy puts you in control of your life again. It gives you the strength to protect your heart, your mind, and your path. And that is how you take charge of your power, one decision at a time.
Chapter 4. Build inner control by slowing down your first response. When something or someone triggers you, your mind wants to jump into action instantly. It wants to fire back, defend itself, protect your pride, and prove a point. But the truth is, your first response is almost always the one that gets you in trouble. It comes from impulse, not intention. It comes from old habits, not conscious thought. And most of the time, it creates more chaos than clarity. Building inner control is not about pretending you don't feel anything. It's about slowing down long enough to understand what you're feeling and why you're feeling it, so you respond from strength instead of reacting from fear or frustration. Mastering this single skill can save your peace, your relationships, and your mental energy. Think about how quickly emotions rise. One moment you're calm, the next moment a comment, a tone, or a situation pulls you into tension. In that split second, your mind doesn't want logic. It wants release. It wants to push back, because it feels cornered. But if you pause before letting your emotions run your behavior, everything changes. That pause is where real emotional maturity begins. Slowing down your first response doesn't mean you're weak or passive. It means you're smart enough to understand that not every moment deserves your immediate reaction. The strongest people aren't the ones who speak the fastest. They're the ones who think clearly before they speak at all. Every time you slow down, you give yourself a chance to see the real situation instead of the version your emotions created. You start noticing details you would have missed if you reacted instantly. The other person's mood, the context, your own triggers, and sometimes the fact that the situation isn't even worth your emotional energy. You start recognizing patterns, how the same sort of comment always irritates you, how certain people try to provoke you, how certain environments make you tense. When you slow down, these things become clear, and once you see patterns, you can change your behavior instead of being controlled by your reactions. You also start giving your brain space to cool off. Most emotional reactions last only a few seconds, but those few seconds can damage a conversation, ruin your mood, or create unnecessary conflict. When you pause even for 2 or 3 seconds, you interrupt that emotional wave. You let your mind shift from instinct into awareness. That tiny gap between feeling and response is where your power lives. It's like taking your hand off the steering wheel just long enough to grab hold of it properly. Instead of swerving, you stabilize. Instead of crashing into the moment, you navigate through it with intention. The pause also helps you understand what your emotion is trying to tell you. Anger usually points to something deeper, a boundary crossed, a fear awakened, a past experience triggered, a value challenged. When you slow down, you can observe the emotion instead of acting it out. You start thinking, why did that bother me? What exactly am I feeling? Is this reaction about the moment or something older? That level of self-awareness gives you emotional freedom, because you stop being controlled by your impulse. You become someone who responds with clarity instead of confusion. Most conflicts grow because people rush into the first reaction without thinking. They feel attacked, so they attack back. They feel misunderstood, so they shut down. They feel embarrassed, so they get defensive. But if you slow down even slightly, you give yourself the chance to choose a different response, one that doesn't escalate things. You can ask questions instead of assuming. You can clarify instead of accusing. You can express your feelings calmly instead of explode. And often, when you stay composed, the other person automatically calms down too. Controlled energy influences uncontrolled energy. Slowing down doesn't mean staying silent in situations where you should speak up. It means choosing your words with intention instead of letting your emotions do the talking for you. Sometimes your calm response is more impactful than any argument you could have made. Calmness has a way of making the other person reflect on their behavior. It leaves no fuel for drama. And when there is no fuel, conflict dies quickly. You also begin to notice the difference between things that actually matter and things that only feel big in the moment. When your emotional response slows down, so does your tendency to personalize everything. You stop assuming someone's tone was about you. You stop believing every rude moment requires a reaction. You stop letting small things ruin your whole day. This is how emotional control grows, by not letting external triggers dictate your internal world. One of the most powerful parts of slowing your response is how much self-respect it builds. When you stay calm under pressure, you prove to yourself that you're stronger than your impulses. You realize you don't need to respond quickly to prove your worth. You don't need to fight every battle to feel powerful. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding to protect your ego. You start moving differently, more steady, more grounded, more selective. People begin to notice it too. They see that you don't get dragged into unnecessary chaos. They see that you don't argue over small things. They see that your energy can't be pulled or manipulated easily. That kind of stability demands respect without you having to say a word. Slowing down also gives you time to choose responses that align with the person you want to be, not the mood you're in. Anyone can react instantly. Anyone can send an angry message, raise their voice, snap back or shut down. But it takes discipline and emotional intelligence to respond in a way you won't regret later. When you slow down, you give your future self less to clean up. Fewer apologies, fewer misunderstandings, fewer moments where you wish you handled things different. You feel lighter because you're not constantly repairing damage caused by emotional outbursts. This skill also reshapes your relationships. People trust you more when you're not volatile. They feel safe communicating with you because they know you won't explode or misinterpret everything. They're more honest with you because they don't fear your reactions. And when people feel safe around you, connections become healthier. You become the kind of person others can talk to without walking on eggshells. Imagine how different your life becomes when you start responding with clarity instead of panic. Arguments shorten, stress decreases, your decisions improve, your interactions become smoother. You stop wasting energy on emotional reactions that lead nowhere. You become someone who moves with intention, not impulse. This doesn't mean you'll never feel intense emotions again. You're human. You will, but you'll deal with them better.
You'll process them instead of projecting them. You'll feel them without letting them control your behavior. That's what real emotional strength looks like. Not being emotionless, but being emotionally aware. Whenever you feel the urge to react instantly, remind yourself that your first reaction is usually the one you'll regret. Give yourself the gift of space. Take a breath. Look at the situation for what it really is, not what your emotions are trying to turn it into. Once you see clearly, you'll naturally choose a response that protects your peace instead of destroying it. Inner control is built in the quiet moments when you decide to pause instead of explode, observe instead of assume, and think instead of react. The more you slow down your first response, the more life opens up for you. You stop being led by the chaos around you and start leading yourself with calm strength. And once you experience that level of control, you never want to go back to the old version of yourself, the one who reacted instantly and paid the price every time.
Chapter 5. Protect your value by avoiding people who ignore it. There comes a point in life when you realize that your peace, your confidence and your sense of self-worth depend heavily on the people you allow into your world. The truth is simple but often ignored. If someone consistently overlooks your value, they will eventually convince you to doubt it yourself. Protecting your value isn't arrogance, it's survival. It's the process of guarding your emotional space from those who erode it without apology. It's about recognizing the difference between people who appreciate you and people who simply use your presence as a convenience. And once you understand this difference deeply, you stop chasing validation from places that have never offered it. Many people stay where they're undervalued because they're afraid of loneliness, conflict, or change. They tell themselves, maybe it's not that bad, maybe I'm overthinking, or maybe they care deep down. But the reality is, consistent behavior reveals everything. When someone truly sees your worth, you feel it, not occasionally but repeatedly. They don't make you guess. They don't treat you like an option. They don't make you question whether you matter to them. You only doubt your value around people who benefit from you doubting it. And that's a sign you need distance, not more effort. Protecting your value starts with acknowledging when something doesn't feel right. Your mind might try to justify it, but your body knows. You feel it in the way your energy drops after talking to certain people. You feel it in how you're always giving more than you receive. You feel it when someone's absence creates more peace than their presence. These are not small whispers. They're signals telling you that you're pouring into a cup that has no bottom. When someone ignores your value, you slowly start shrinking yourself to fit into their limited perception of you. You become quieter, more careful, more eager to please, hoping they'll notice the effort. But people who overlook your worth rarely change, because they've already decided how much of you they want to see. This is why protecting your value requires courage. It means walking away from comfortable disrespect. It means choosing yourself even when someone else refuses to choose you. It means understanding that distance isn't punishment, it's protection. You're not abandoning them, you're saving yourself. You're making a decision that says, I'm done proving my worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding it. Once you take that step, you begin to realize how much mental and emotional space was being drained by that connection. One of the most damaging things about staying around people who ignore your worth is the way they rewrite the story of who you are. Slowly you start believing that your needs are too big, your expectations are unreasonable, your feelings are dramatic. They make you think your standards are a problem instead of a reflection of your self-respect. You begin to feel guilty for asking for basic decency. You start lowering the bar until there is nothing left to lower. And the worst part is, you think you're doing it for the sake of keeping the peace, when really you're losing the peace inside yourself. Protecting your value means raising your standards back to where they belong. It means recognizing when someone treats you like a placeholder instead of a priority. It means noticing when someone only shows up when they need something. It means paying attention to how people behave when you're no longer useful to them. Real value is seen without reminders. Real appreciation doesn't need explanations. If someone wants you in their life, they show it through consistency, not excuses. Sometimes you hold on because you hope they'll finally understand your worth. But the longer you wait for people like this to change, the more you teach them that they don't need to. They learn that you'll tolerate disrespect. They learn that you'll forgive without accountability. They learn that you'll keep giving even when they give nothing back. Protecting your value means breaking this pattern. It means deciding that your emotional well-being is more important than someone's temporary attention. And the moment you step away from people who ignore your worth, something powerful happens. You begin to reconnect with yourself. You rediscover the parts of you that were quieted, dismissed, or judged. You start remembering your strength, your qualities, your uniqueness. You feel lighter because you're no longer carrying the emotional weight of someone else's indifference. When you're not fighting for someone's approval, you have the space to approve of yourself. You'll also notice that your energy changes when you distance yourself from people who don't value you. You stop overthinking every interaction. You stop trying to predict their mood. You stop replaying conversations in your mind. You stop blaming yourself for their behavior. Your mind becomes clear because the noise they created is gone. Peace returns when the wrong people leave. Something else becomes clear too. The people who truly value you stand out effortlessly. They don't drain you, they support you. They don't overlook you, they appreciate you. They don't silence your voice, they make space for it. When someone values you, your presence feels welcomed, not tolerated. You don't have to fight for attention or beg to be heard. You don't feel like an interruption in their life. Protecting your value also means understanding the difference between forgiveness and accessibility. You can forgive someone and still keep your distance. You can care about someone and still refuse to let them drain you. You can wish someone well and still choose not to let them close again. Forgiveness doesn't require proximity. It requires clarity. It means letting go of resentment, not letting go of boundaries. It's important to accept that not everyone will see your worth, and that's okay. Your value isn't determined by someone else's inability to recognize it. Some people are too distracted, too self-centered, or too emotionally immature to appreciate who you are. That has nothing to do with you, but it becomes your responsibility when you keep them in your life despite knowing they are incapable of offering you the respect you deserve. The more you protect your value, the more selective you become. You stop letting just anyone have access to you. You start understanding that your time, your emotional energy, and your presence are gifts, not obligations. You don't need to explain why you're distancing yourself. You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need permission to protect your peace. You're simply taking care of yourself in a world where many people forget how to take care of others. Sometimes protecting your value means learning to walk away quietly. You don't create drama. You don't demand explanations. You don't beg for better treatment. You simply stop participating in situations that diminish you. You stop giving energy to people who only You stop trying to fix relationships that fall apart every time you stop carrying them. Walking away doesn't always feel good at first, but it always leads you back to yourself. You eventually realize that your value remains the same whether someone recognizes it or not. Just like a diamond doesn't become less valuable because it's overlooked by someone who doesn't understand its worth. You don't become less valuable because someone failed to appreciate you. Their inability to see your value does not reduce it. It only reveals their limitations. And here's the beautiful part. When you protect your value, life brings better people your way. People who respect your boundaries. People who are grateful for your presence. People who listen. Who care. Who show up consistently. People who make effort without being asked. People who understand reciprocity. People who don't make you feel like you're asking for too much just by wanting the bare minimum of respect. When your value is protected, it attracts those who know how to treat it. But none of this can happen if you keep allowing people who ignore your worth to stay close. You can't heal in an environment that hurts you. You can't grow around people who don't believe in you. You can't find peace in places that constantly disturb your spirit. Protecting your value means leaving those spaces so you can create new ones. Healthier ones. Safer ones. Ones where you can be your full, authentic self without being reduced or dismissed. The path to protecting your value is long, but it's worth it.
You start by observing how people treat you, then you set boundaries, then you choose distance, then you rebuild your sense of self, and finally you create a life where your value is honored, not ignored. You no longer chase acceptance. You no longer lower your standards. You no longer apologize for expecting respect. You become someone who knows their worth deeply and protects it fiercely. And once you reach that level of self-respect, your life becomes calmer, quieter, and more grounded. You stop giving your heart to careless hands. You stop wasting time on people who drain your strength. You stop letting your value be determined by those who never knew how to appreciate it. You become someone who stands tall, not because others see your worth, but because you finally see it yourself, and refuse to let anyone take that away again.
Chapter 6. Strengthen your mindset by giving attention only to facts. There is a turning point in a person's life when they finally realize how much emotional pain comes from things that are not even real. Assumptions, fears, thoughts that never had evidence, stories built from imagination instead of truth. When your mind accepts ideas without facts, it begins shaping a reality that does not exist. And once that false reality takes hold, it starts controlling how you feel, what you expect, and how you behave. Strengthening your mindset begins with one simple but powerful shift: giving your attention only to what is proven, clear and real. When you live by facts, you take back control of your emotions. When you live by assumptions, you hand that control away. Most people don't realize how quickly the mind jumps ahead without checking the truth. You look at someone's tone, and your mind concludes they are upset with you. You notice someone delaying a reply, and your mind decides you are being ignored. You see a small change in someone's behavior, and your mind creates an entire story about what it means. But none of these reactions are based on facts. They are driven by insecurities, past experiences, and fears that were never addressed. And until you train your mind to separate facts from feelings, you will continue living in emotional confusion. When you strengthen your mindset by focusing on facts, you reduce unnecessary stress. You spend less time worrying about things that never happen. You avoid giving emotional energy to situations that have no clear evidence. You stop reacting to assumptions as if they are truth. You learn to pause, look at the situation honestly, and respond only to what you know for sure. This skill can change your life because it creates stability inside you. You cannot control the world, but you can control what you attach your emotions to. One of the most important steps in this process is learning to ask, what do I actually know right now? This simple question pulls your attention away from imagined scenarios and brings it back to reality. If you don't know something, then you have no reason to react to it. If you have no proof, you have no reason to create emotional pressure around it. You stop filling in missing details with fear and start filling them with patience, clarity and logic. This is how a mature mind works. It looks at facts before forming conclusions. Many people allow their emotions to run wild because they grew up reacting to everything instantly. They were taught to trust their feelings more than their thinking. But feelings can lie, especially when shaped by old wounds. Facts keep you grounded. If someone didn't say they're upset, you cannot decide they are. If someone didn't clearly show disrespect, you cannot label them as disrespect. If someone hasn't rejected you, you cannot treat it as if they already have. Your emotions will always try to run ahead, but your strength comes from holding them back until the truth is here. Focusing on facts also protects your relationship. Many good connections fall apart because someone reacted to a thought that wasn't true. They assumed the worst. They expected rejection before it came. They created meaning where there was none. When you base your reactions on facts, you avoid damaging relationships with premature judgment. You communicate better. You ask questions instead of jumping to conclusions. You listen more instead of assuming you already know the answer. This builds trust, not only with others but also within yourself. Another part of strengthening your mindset is learning to slow down the emotional stories that come from past pain. When you've been hurt before, your mind tries to protect you by predicting danger, but sometimes that protection works against you. The mind remembers old moments and uses them to shape new ones. If someone in your past ignored you, your mind might assume the same thing is happening again even when it's not true. If someone in your past mistreated you, your mind may expect similar treatment from someone who has done nothing wrong. But facts break this pattern. Facts remind you that every situation is different. Facts help you stop mixing yesterday's pain with today's possibility. When facts guide your thinking, you also waste less energy on what you cannot verify. You stop trying to read minds. You stop trying to guess motives. You stop trying to decode every small behavior. You simply pay attention to what is real. If someone shows effort, you acknowledge it. If someone is distant, you observe it. If someone respects you, you recognize it. If someone disrespects you, you face it. The mind becomes stronger when it stops chasing what is uncertain and focuses on what is clear. A strong mindset is built on mental discipline. This discipline teaches you to delay emotional reactions until you have information. You do not rush into stress. You do not jump into disappointment. You do not fall into worry without reason. You give yourself time. You think before you feel. You observe before you decide. This is not cold or emotionless. This is emotional maturity. It is the ability to protect your peace by being honest with yourself about what is real. When you give attention only to facts, you also improve your decision-making. Decisions based on fear are rarely wise. Decisions based on guesses often lead to regret, but decisions based on facts give you confidence. You know why you're making the choice. You know what you're responding to. You know the reality, not the story created by insecurity. A strong mind knows the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is emotional. Responding is logical. When you use facts, you respond. Another powerful benefit of focusing on facts is that it reduces overthinking. Overthinking happens when your mind tries to make sense of things without enough information. It fills the empty spaces with assumptions. When you commit to only giving your emotional energy to facts, you remove those empty spaces. You stop building stories and start accepting reality as it is. Your thinking becomes cleaner. Your emotions become lighter. Strengthening your mindset also means becoming comfortable with not having immediate answers. Many people overthink because they want certainty right away. They want to know what someone feels, what someone meant, or what something will turn into. But life doesn't always give instant clarity. Sometimes you need patience. Sometimes you need observation. Sometimes the truth shows itself gradually. When you learn to wait for facts instead of forcing conclusions, you develop emotional stability. There is another side to this growth. You must also be honest about the facts you don't want to see. It's easy to assume negative things that aren't true, but it's also easy to ignore negative things that are true. Strengthening your mindset requires facing both. If someone repeatedly shows a lack of respect, that is a fact. If someone avoids responsibility, that is a fact. If someone makes you feel unimportant through their actions, that is a fact. You cannot cover facts with hope. You cannot deny what is consistently shown. Facts protect you from holding on to people who harm your peace. A strong mind doesn't rely on wishful thinking. It relies on patterns, behavior, consistency, and evidence. When you build your mindset around facts, you protect yourself from emotional manipulation. People cannot confuse you when you pay attention to their actions. People cannot control you when you see the truth clearly. People cannot make you doubt your worth when their behavior speaks louder than their excuses. Facts free you from emotional traps. Another important part of this growth is self-awareness. You must be able to separate your fears from reality. You must be able to question your first. You must be able to admit when your mind is creating stories. You must be willing to challenge your internal reactions. When you strengthen your mindset, you become aware of how your thoughts shape your emotions. You learn to interrupt thoughts that are not grounded in truth. You choose clarity over chaos. Living by facts also gives you emotional independence. You don't rely on someone else's mood to define your self-worth. You don't depend on someone's response to feel secure. You don't allow someone's silence to break your confidence. You know who you are because your identity is not built on assumptions. It is built on truth, reflection, and self-understanding. This makes you stronger, calmer, and harder to shake.
When you train your mind to focus on facts, you begin to see life more honestly. You stop imagining problems. You stop exaggerating situations. You stop expecting danger where there is none. You begin seeing people for who they truly are, both the good and the bad. You gain clarity about your relationships, your choices, and your own patterns. This clarity becomes a form of power. It protects you from emotional confusion and keeps your life grounded. This shift also makes you more confident. Confidence comes from knowing, not guessing. When you base your emotions on what is real, you stand on solid ground. You don't feel easily shaken. You don't feel emotionally fragile. You don't feel lost inside your own thoughts. You become someone who thinks clearly even under pressure. You become someone who doesn't break under stress, because your mind is trained to filter the truth from the noise. Strengthening your mindset by giving attention only to facts is not a one-time action. It's a daily practice. It's a habit you build over time. Every time you refuse to react without evidence, you strengthen your mind. Every time you ask yourself what you truly know, you strengthen your mind. Every time you choose clarity instead of fear, you strengthen your mind. And each time you do it, you build emotional stability piece by piece. As this habit grows, you begin to feel a deep sense of control over your life. You realize that most of your past stress came from reacting to things that never actually happened. You see how much peace you gain just by grounding your emotions in truth. You experience more balance, more confidence, and more strength. You become someone who is not easily influenced by the chaos around you. Instead, you become someone who leads your life with direction, intention, and stability. And once your mindset becomes anchored in facts, your emotional world becomes clearer. You make better decisions. You protect your peace. You avoid unnecessary drama. You stop giving your heart to imagined problems. You start living with a calm mind and a strong sense of self. Life feels lighter because your thoughts are cleaner. Life feels better because your reactions are smarter. Life feels more stable because your emotions are grounded in truth. This is how you build a mindset that protects your power. This is how you take back control of your emotional world. This is how you grow into someone who is not controlled by doubts, fears, or assumptions. You strengthen your mindset when you choose to give your attention only to what is real. And the moment you do that, your entire life begins to change.
Chapter 7. Redirect your focus by investing time in your well-being. When life feels overwhelming and your energy is being pulled in 100 directions, it becomes easy to forget that your well-being is the most important asset you have. Your mind, body, and emotions need attention just like any other important part of your life. Many people spend all their time fixing external problems, managing other people's expectations, and reacting to circumstances, but neglect the one area that determines how well they handle everything: themselves. Redirecting your focus to invest time in your well-being is not indulgent or selfish, it is essential. Every hour you spend improving yourself, calming your mind, and strengthening your body multiplies your capacity to handle life effectively. Most people live in reactive mode, constantly chasing deadlines, responding to messages, and trying to solve problems that are urgent but not necessarily important. In this state, your well-being suffers because you are always giving to others without replenishing yourself. You feel tired, stressed, anxious, and depleted. You may even begin to accept this as normal. But normal does not mean optimal. You were designed to thrive, not just survive. Redirecting your focus is the first step toward taking back control of your life. It starts with deciding that you matter enough to prioritize yourself. Investing time in your well-being begins with awareness. Notice where your energy is going. Notice how you feel at the end of each day. Are you physically exhausted? Are you emotionally drained? Are your thoughts scattered and restless? These signals are not to be ignored. They are messages from your body and mind that you need attention. Many people overlook these signals, and they pay the price in stress, burnout, and diminished quality of life. Giving attention to your well-being is a way of listening to yourself and responding before the problems escalate. One practical way to invest in your well-being is to schedule dedicated time for it. This time does not need to be long, but it must be intentional. It can be 30 minutes of exercise, a quiet walk without distractions, journaling your thoughts, or reading something that nourishes your mind. It can be preparing a healthy meal, meditating, or setting goals for the week. The key is consistency. Small, repeated actions compound over time. They build resilience, reduce stress, and improve your overall mental clarity. Your focus shifts because you are actively choosing to nurture yourself. Redirecting your focus also means removing distractions that drain your energy. Social media, constant notifications, negative people, and unnecessary commitments consume attention that could be better spent on your growth. You must be selective about what receives your focus. Every hour of your attention is a decision. When you invest in yourself, you strengthen your mind, your body, and your emotions. When you waste your attention on meaningless distractions, you weaken all three. Protecting your focus is part of protecting your well-being. Another essential component is physical care. Your body and mind are interconnected. Exercise is not just about looking better, it is about feeling better. Moving your body releases tension, boosts energy, and increases mental clarity. Nutrition matters because what you put in your body affects how you feel, think, and perform. Sleep is not optional. It is the foundation of every function in your life. When you redirect focus to care for your body, you are making a long-term investment in your well-being. You become more capable of handling challenges, thinking clearly, and remaining calm under pressure. Emotional well-being is just as important. Investing time in yourself means understanding your feelings, processing them, and releasing what no longer serves you. Many people carry unresolved emotions that affect their decisions, their energy, and their relationship. You can redirect your focus by journaling, speaking with a trusted confidant, or seeking professional support if needed. Emotional investment in yourself is a powerful act of self-respect. It teaches you that your mental health matters, and that you deserve stability and clarity. Redirecting your focus also strengthens your resilience. When your energy is aligned with your well-being, you are less likely to react impulsively to stress, conflict, or disappointment. You have a steady center that protects you from being pulled into drama or anxiety. Investing in yourself gives you tools to face life with calmness, confidence, and composure. Every choice you make to strengthen your mind, body, and emotions builds a foundation that cannot be shaken easily. Spending time on well-being also increases productivity. When you are healthy, rested, and emotionally balanced, you accomplish more with less effort. Your focus improves, your decision-making sharpens, your creativity flows. Investing in yourself is not taking time away from work or responsibilities. It is enhancing your ability to handle them effectively. People who neglect their well-being often struggle to keep up, not because they lack skill, but because their energy is depleted. Redirecting focus to self-care ensures you are operating at your best consistently. Investing time in your well-being includes nurturing your mind. Feed it knowledge, inspiration, and clarity. Limit exposure to negative news, toxic conversations, and unnecessary worry. Engage with materials and people who uplift you, challenge your thinking positively, and encourage growth. Your mind is a tool, and like any tool, it requires maintenance. Strengthening it through attention to facts, learning, and reflection improves how you interact with the world and handle pressure. Redirecting your focus is also about creating boundaries. Not everyone deserves access to your time, energy, or emotion. Protecting your space ensures that your well-being is not compromised by others' demands or negativity. Saying no to commitments that drain you is not selfish. It is a necessary act of self-preservation. Your well-being depends on prioritizing what matters to you and limiting exposure to what doesn't. This conscious investment leads to higher quality interactions and more meaningful experiences. Your habits define how well you protect your well-being. Daily routines that include intentional focus on yourself build momentum. When you wake up and dedicate time to nourishment, planning, and reflection, you set the tone for the day. When you end the day by evaluating your energy and addressing needs,
you maintain balance. Small, consistent habits create a lifestyle where your mind and body are supported, not depleted. Redirecting focus to well-being is a continuous process that compounds over time, creating stronger mental, emotional, and physical resilience. Spiritual or reflective practices can also enhance well-being. Taking time to meditate, pray, or simply reflect gives your mind clarity and your emotions balance. You begin to see situations with perspective instead of reacting impulsive. You notice patterns in your life and gain insight into what choices support your growth. Investing attention in these practices is not about religion or ideology. It's about finding balance, focus, and mental clarity. Relationships matter too. Investing time in your well-being means surrounding yourself with people who uplift, support, and inspire you. Toxic relationships deplete energy. Healthy connections energize and motivate. When you prioritize yourself, you naturally attract individuals who respect your time, energy, and growth. This creates an environment where your well-being is enhanced rather than compromised. Your focus becomes intentional, directed toward positivity and strength. Redirecting focus toward well-being also strengthens your emotional independence. You stop relying on external validation to feel secure. You begin to understand that your self-worth is not tied to approval, praise, or acknowledgement from others. Your peace becomes internal, unshakable, and consistent. This independence allows you to face challenges without fear of judgment or rejection. Your energy is invested where it produces growth, not dependency. Every moment spent nurturing your well-being improves your life exponentially. The stronger your mind, the more focused your thoughts. The healthier your body, the more energy you have. The more balanced your emotions, the more control you maintain over reactions and decisions. Investing in yourself is not a temporary fix. It is a permanent strategy for creating a life of stability, growth, and personal power. Redirecting your focus ensures that you are not controlled by chaos, stress, or external pressure. You also gain perspective when you invest in well-being. Time spent reflecting, exercising, or practicing mindfulness allows you to step back from the pressures of life. You see clearly what deserves attention and what does not. You recognize when your energy is being wasted and when it is being used wisely. This clarity protects you from unnecessary emotional strain and strengthens your capacity to handle real challenges. Redirecting focus is a choice you make every day. You can choose to react to everything around you, or to intentionally invest your energy in yourself. Each day presents opportunities to prioritize growth, calm, and clarity. Each decision builds or depletes your well-being. When you consistently choose to invest in yourself, you create a strong foundation that allows you to face adversity without losing balance, to make decisions without confusion, and to live life with intention rather than reaction. Investing time in well-being is a form of empowerment. It demonstrates self-respect and acknowledges that your mental, physical, and emotional health are vital. You become someone who others can rely on, not because you are available to everyone, but because you are strong, stable, and grounded. Your focus becomes a tool that shapes your life, guiding your actions, reactions, and decisions in alignment with your highest good. The cumulative effect of redirecting your focus toward well-being is profound. You feel stronger, calmer, and more resilient. You gain energy, clarity, and confidence. You stop wasting time on people, habits, or situations that drain you. Your life becomes a reflection of the attention you give to yourself. You become someone who leads with intention, handles challenges with composure, and lives from a place of personal strength rather than reactive chaos. Ultimately, redirecting focus by investing in your well-being is about choosing yourself every day. It's about valuing your energy, protecting your peace, and committing to growth. It is a lifelong strategy that transforms stress into clarity, fatigue into energy, and uncertainty into confidence. Your focus becomes the driver of your life, and by investing it in your own well-being, you reclaim power, stability, and the ability to thrive in every area of your life.
Chapter 8. Break emotional attachment by questioning why you hold on. Emotional attachment is one of the most powerful forces in life, but it can also be one of the most limiting. People hold on to relationships, habits, possessions, or even past experiences far longer than necessary, and often the reason is not obvious at first. Breaking emotional attachment is not about shutting down your heart or pretending you don't care. It is about asking the hard questions that reveal why you continue to give energy to something or someone that no longer serves your growth, happiness, or peace. When you confront these questions honestly, you reclaim power over your emotions and your life. Most of the time, people hold on because of fear. Fear of change, fear of loss, fear of loneliness, or fear of the unknown. This fear disguises itself as comfort, familiarity, or obligation, but underneath it is a quiet resistance to stepping into freedom. You may tell yourself, "I cannot let go," or "I need this," when in reality, what you are holding on to is draining your energy, clouding your mind, and limiting your potential. Questioning why you hold on requires courage, because it forces you to face the reality that your attachment may be based on fear and not love, need, or genuine connection. The first step in breaking attachment is awareness. You need to observe your emotional patterns carefully. Notice how often your thoughts drift back to someone or something. Pay attention to the moments when you feel anxiety, sadness, or frustration because of a particular connection. Ask yourself if these feelings are truly caused by the present reality, or if they are fueled by the habit of attachment. Often people confuse familiarity with necessity. They feel incomplete without certain things or people, even when those things or people create more discomfort than comfort. Next, question the value of what you are holding on to. Ask yourself, what am I really getting from this attachment? Is this situation improving my life, or is it keeping me stuck? Many emotional attachments survive on nostalgia or hope rather than reality. You remember what used to be or hope for what could be, rather than observing what actually is. When you separate memories and expectations from current truths, you begin to see attachments clearly for what they are, choices that may no longer serve your highest good. It is also crucial to examine your identity in connection to attachment. Sometimes people cling because they tie their sense of self to a person, a place, or a habit. They believe that letting go would mean losing part of themselves. But your identity is not dependent on external factors. It is built with. Questioning attachment forces you to distinguish between your intrinsic value and the role of external influences in your life. You begin to see that freedom and self-worth are not taken away when you release someone or something. They are discovered. Another powerful approach is to analyze the consequences of holding on. What has this attachment cost you emotionally, mentally, and physically? How much stress, resentment, or distraction does it create? How much potential growth have you delayed because of? People often underestimate these costs because they are invisible on the surface. Pain accumulates silently, but it accumulates relentlessly. When you consider the hidden consequences of attachment honestly, the desire to hold on begins to weaken naturally. Breaking attachment also requires distinguishing between love and habit. Many times people say they cannot let go because they love someone or something, when in reality, they are clinging to the routine or the comfort it provides. True love does not require suffering or compromise of your peace. Habitual attachment, on the other hand, keeps you tethered to situations that may no longer be healthy. Asking yourself, am I attached because of love or because of habit, clarifies your decisions and creates space for healthier choices. Reflection is another critical tool. Journaling your thoughts and feelings allows you to explore the reasons behind your attachments. Writing down your fears, your hopes, and your motivations brings clarity. It helps you see patterns that were invisible when emotions were swirling inside your mind. Reflection is not about guilt or self-judgment. It is about observation, understanding, and insight. It is the practice that transforms blind attachment into conscious choice. It is also essential to notice the ways attachment manifests physically. You may feel tension in your chest, headaches, restlessness, or fatigue because of emotional ties. Your body carries the weight of attachment silently. Observing these signs can guide you to where attention is needed. When you become aware of the bodily signals associated with attachment,
you can address the emotional root more directly. Emotional freedom often begins in the body as much as in the mind. Breaking attachment also involves evaluating control. Ask yourself, am I trying to control this person or situation by holding on? Often attachment is rooted in the illusion that clinging gives influence. You may feel that if you stay connected, you can change outcomes or ensure security. But control is an illusion. When you release attachment, you acknowledge that you cannot control everything, and in that acceptance, real power emerges. True strength lies in knowing when to let go and how to redirect your energy toward growth instead of obsession. Part of breaking attachment is practicing detachment without abandoning care. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means engaging with clarity and balance. You can care about someone or something without being consumed by it. You can show kindness without losing yourself. Detachment allows you to be present without sacrificing your emotional stability. When you question why you hold on, you realize that attachment often creates unnecessary suffering when the heart is over-invested in what cannot be changed. Another aspect of this process is recognizing patterns from the past. Emotional attachments often repeat themselves because the mind is conditioned to seek familiar outcomes. You may notice that similar relationships or situations keep causing the same pain. Questioning attachment allows you to break these cycles. By understanding why you repeatedly hold on to harmful patterns, you can make different choices moving forward. Awareness of repetition is a bridge between past experiences and conscious freedom. Breaking attachment also requires patience. Emotional ties do not dissolve instantly. They weaken gradually as insight, understanding, and conscious choice accumulate. You must be gentle with yourself and allow the process to unfold naturally. Forcing detachment often backfires because the mind and heart resist abrupt change. Questioning attachment is a gradual act of self-liberation that builds strength over time, teaching you to engage with the world without losing your balance. It is helpful to create alternative sources of fulfillment. Many attachments persist because they fill a void or provide temporary comfort. When you redirect your focus to hobbies, personal growth, and meaningful connections, you replace the emotional dependence with healthy engagement. Investing in yourself, your passions, and your well-being reduces the perceived need to hold on to harmful attachment. The more value you cultivate internally, the less external attachment controls you. Reflection on outcomes is also key. Ask, if I continue holding on, where will I be in 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years? Often people are trapped in the short-term emotional gratification of attachment while ignoring long-term consequences. When you consider the bigger picture, the emotional grip loosens. You start to see that holding on may prevent growth, block opportunities, or perpetuate unnecessary suffering. Questioning attachment reframes the experience from immediate comfort to long-term freedom. Forgiveness can support detachment. Often attachments linger because of unresolved hurt or resentment. By forgiving yourself or others, you release the emotional weight that binds you. Forgiveness is not about condoning behavior, it is about liberating your heart from pain. When you pair questioning attachment with forgiveness, you create space to move forward without lingering bitterness or regret. Emotional freedom is possible only when you address both the attachment and the emotional baggage that sustains it. Breaking emotional attachment also requires courage to face discomfort. Letting go often creates temporary pain, uncertainty, or fear. The mind resists because it prefers the familiar, even when it is harmful. Recognizing that discomfort is part of growth allows you to lean into the process instead of resisting it. You realize that short-term discomfort leads to long-term clarity, strength, and peace. Emotional maturity emerges from navigating this tension instead of avoiding it. Accountability to yourself strengthens detachment. Commit to observing your attachments honestly. Commit to asking the hard questions without excuses. Commit to redirecting your energy towards situations and people that genuinely support your growth. By taking responsibility for your attachments, you stop blaming others or circumstances. You reclaim the power that attachment has silently held over your decisions, emotions, and life direction. The more you question attachment, the more clarity you gain about your priority. You begin to notice which relationships, habits or situations align with your values and which do not. You see clearly where your energy should be invested and where it is wasted. This awareness builds inner strength, reduces unnecessary stress, and enhances your ability to live with purpose. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. Breaking attachment also opens space for self-discovery. You begin to understand yourself on a deeper level, your desires, your limits, your capacity for love and resilience. You learn to differentiate between dependency and choice. You discover that freedom and connection can coexist. You experience relationships, experiences, and opportunities without being trapped by emotional need. Questioning why you hold on transforms attachment from a source of limitation into a gateway for empowerment. Finally, when you break emotional attachment, you reclaim your power. You no longer allow past experiences, fear or habits to dictate your actions or thoughts. You operate from clarity, choice, and self-awareness. You give energy intentionally, not compulsively. You engage with the world fully but without unnecessary burden. Your life becomes guided by conscious decisions instead of invisible chains. Emotional attachment loses its hold, and in its place rises strength, peace, and the ability to shape your life on your terms.
Chapter 9. Reclaim power by acting based on logic, not approval. Power is not given. Power is not inherited. Power is claimed through conscious action, and reclaiming it requires clarity, discipline, and a willingness to act for reasons that serve your growth, rather than to please others. Many people live their entire lives seeking approval, measuring their decisions against what others think, and chasing validation that is fleeting and unreliable. Acting for approval might feel safe, but it is a slow surrender of personal power. Every decision based on someone else's expectations chips away at confidence, autonomy, and the ability to lead your own life. To reclaim your power, you must make choices guided by logic, reasoning, and self-awareness, not by fear of judgment or desire for acceptance. The first step is recognizing the patterns where approval drives your behavior. Observe how often you hesitate to speak up because someone might disapprove. Notice decisions you postpone or alter because you anticipate criticism. Pay attention to actions you take that are not aligned with your priorities, just to gain acceptance or avoid confrontation. Many people are unaware of how frequently they let external validation dictate their lives. Awareness is the key. Once you see these patterns, you can begin to interrupt them and shift toward intentional action, grounded in logic. Logic is a tool that allows you to separate emotion from unnecessary influence. Acting based on logic does not mean you ignore feelings or intuition. It means that you examine them critically before allowing them to control you. Logic asks questions. Does this decision align with my values? Does this action contribute to my goal? Am I compromising myself for the sake of someone else's opinion? When your decisions pass the test of reason, rather than fear, your power is strengthened. Each logical choice builds confidence because it is rooted in understanding, not reaction. A major barrier to reclaiming power is fear of rejection. People worry that others will judge them negatively, criticize their choices, or withdraw support. Fear is natural, but it should not determine your actions. Approval is external and inconsistent. Logic is internal and reliable. When you act according to what is correct for you based on evidence, reason, and priorities, you reclaim authority over your own life. The moment you stop bending to approval, you stop being manipulated by the expectations of others, and you regain control over your energy, focus, and outcome. To act logically, begin by identifying your core principles. What values are non-negotiable? What goals are central to your growth? What standards define your life? When your decisions are measured against these internal benchmarks, the need for external validation diminishes. You no longer have to seek permission or praise. You operate from alignment with your own priorities. Acting from principles is the foundation of power, because it anchors your choices in reason, rather than reaction. Another critical step is questioning motivations behind every action. Before making a choice, ask yourself, am I doing this because it is right for me, or because I want someone's approval? Honest answers reveal the influence of external pressures and allow you to redirect your behavior toward logical, intentional action. Many people are unaware of how much of their energy is spent chasing validation. Once this awareness emerges, you gain the ability to act independently without guilt, fear, or hesitation. Reclaiming power also requires recognizing that approval is never guaranteed. No matter how carefully you try to please others, their judgment may still be negative. People have different perspectives, values, and priorities. When your happiness and decisions depend on approval, you are constantly vulnerable to disappointment. Acting based on logic instead of approval liberates you from this trap. You no longer gamble your energy on unpredictable reactions. You make decisions with clarity and certainty. A strong strategy is to focus on outcomes, rather than opinion. Logic evaluates actions based on measurable or meaningful results. Approval evaluates actions based on subjective preference. By prioritizing outcomes, you shift your attention from being liked to being effective. You begin to notice progress, growth, and accomplishments as indicators of success, rather than applause. Acting for results builds competence, confidence, and influence in ways that seeking approval never can. Every action aligned with goals and values strengthens your position and your power. Reclaiming power involves managing emotional triggers. People often seek approval when they feel insecure, anxious, or uncertain. The mind naturally wants reassurance to calm fear. Acting logically requires the ability to pause, observe your internal state, and choose response instead of reaction. Emotional awareness allows you to separate temporary feelings from permanent truth. You recognize that disapproval does not diminish your worth, and approval does not define it. This detachment from external judgment is the foundation of personal authority. It also requires the courage to face criticism. Even when acting logically, not everyone will agree or approve. This is a normal part of life. People's opinions are not facts. They are perspectives shaped by their experiences, biases, and expectations. When you internalize this understanding, criticism loses its power over you. You maintain composure, continue pursuing your path, and protect your energy. Acting for approval subjects you to control. Acting logically frees you to direct your own course. Prioritizing reason also means making decisions that support long-term growth over short-term comfort. Approval often tempts you to choose what is easy, popular, or temporarily satisfying. Logic compels you to consider consequences, benefits, and alignment with your life goals. When you consistently choose logic, you build resilience, self-reliance, and mastery over your circumstances. Each logical choice compounds, creating momentum and reinforcing the habit of independent, empowered action. Boundary setting is another crucial aspect. Acting based on logic requires clear limits. You cannot allow others to dictate how you spend time, manage energy, or pursue goals. Establishing boundaries ensures that you protect your power from external pressure. People who seek to control, manipulate, or exploit approval patterns will test limits, but boundaries maintain autonomy. Acting logically means consistently enforcing boundaries and prioritizing actions that serve you rather than bending to demands that weaken your position. Reclaiming power also involves accountability. You must take responsibility for your decisions, successes, and mistakes. Logic requires honest evaluation of outcomes. When actions produce undesired results, you learn, adjust, and continue without blaming external approval. Accountability strengthens confidence because you see cause and effect clearly. Acting for approval avoids responsibility because the focus is on others' reactions rather than personal outcomes. Logic empowers you to embrace ownership of life, which is a critical element of power. Decision-making practice reinforces logical action. Start with small daily choices where approval temptation exists, such as what to eat, how to spend time,
or how to respond in conversation. Practice acting according to reason rather than seeking praise. Notice how your clarity increases and how anxiety about others' opinions decreases. Over time, this practice builds muscle memory in decision-making that strengthens confidence in larger, more significant situations. Logic becomes habit, and approval loses control. Acting logically also improves relationships. People respect others who act with clarity, consistency, and integrity. When your behavior is predictable based on reason rather than emotional approval, others understand where you stand. They respond to your decisions rather than manipulate them. Acting for approval creates dependency. Acting logically creates respect. This shift enhances collaboration, influence, and mutual understanding in both personal and professional settings. Another aspect of reclaiming power is recognizing the limits of influence. You cannot control others' opinions or reactions. Chasing approval is an endless and exhausting cycle. Logic allows you to act within your sphere of influence, your decisions, actions, and responses, without wasting energy on things you cannot change. The freedom gained by understanding this distinction is profound. You reclaim energy, focus, and authority over your own life. Prioritizing internal validation over external approval strengthens self-esteem. When your choices are guided by your reasoning, you develop confidence independent of recognition. You no longer depend on praise, acknowledgement, or affirmation to feel secure. Each logical decision reinforces belief in your judgment, knowledge, and capability. Over time, this internal validation becomes unshakable, creating a foundation for consistent personal power. Reclaiming power also encourages proactive behavior. When acting logically, you anticipate challenges, weigh options, and make informed decisions. This proactive approach contrasts with reactive behavior driven by the desire to please or avoid disapproval. Logic places you in control because your actions are intentional and guided by thoughtfulness rather than emotion. Approval-driven decisions leave you at the mercy of circumstances and people. Logic-driven decisions position you as the architect of your life. Consistency is key. Acting logically in small decisions builds the habit of independent reason. Repetition strengthens mental resilience and reduces susceptibility to external influence. Over time, logical action becomes instinctive, approval seeking fades, and your energy becomes focused on growth, achievement, and meaningful connection. Consistency creates momentum and reinforces confidence in your ability to navigate life without being controlled by others' opinions. Finally, reclaiming power is a mindset shift. You no longer ask, "What will they think?" but instead ask, "What is the right choice based on my values and goals?" You no longer measure success by praise, but by effectiveness, integrity, and alignment with principles. You no longer let fear of disapproval dictate your actions. Instead, you act with clarity, purpose, and autonomy. Every decision reinforces independence, strengthens confidence, and demonstrates the true source of power, the ability to act intentionally, grounded in logic rather than the fleeting opinions of others.
Chapter 10. Stabilize your emotions by reminding yourself what really matters. Emotions are powerful forces in life, and they can either guide you toward clarity and action or pull you into chaos and distraction. The ability to stabilize your emotions is not about suppressing feelings or pretending problems do not exist. It is about training your mind to consistently focus on what truly matters, to distinguish between noise and substance, and to respond intentionally rather than react impulsively. Most people allow their emotional state to be dictated by circumstances, other people's behavior, or fleeting events. This lack of control leads to stress, confusion, and regret. Stabilizing your emotions starts with a simple principle: prioritize what has real significance in your life, and let everything else fade into perspective. The first step is awareness. Begin noticing how often your emotions spike due to minor inconveniences, unimportant criticisms, or situations that will not matter a week or even a day from now. Many people allow themselves to react instantly to every stimulus without questioning its relevance. By observing your emotional reactions, you can separate trivial triggers from meaningful ones. This observation is the foundation of stability, because you start seeing where your energy is being wasted and where it should be preserved. Understanding your emotional patterns is the first action toward mastery. Next, clarify your values. What truly matters to you, what principles, goals, and relationships define the life you want to live. When you have a clear sense of your priorities, you can evaluate emotional responses in the context of these values. Anger, frustration, anxiety, or disappointment often arise from situations that in the larger picture have little impact. When you remind yourself of what is important, these minor disturbances lose their power. Stabilizing your emotions is easier when you have an internal compass guiding your attention toward what deserves energy. It is also essential to recognize the impermanence of most situations. Emotions often intensify because the mind treats temporary problems as permanent crises. Traffic, criticism, mistakes, or delays feel monumental in the moment, but most fade with time. By consistently reminding yourself of the transient nature of challenges, you create a mental buffer between stimulus and reaction. This buffer allows your mind to respond with clarity rather than panic, reducing the likelihood of overreaction and emotional exhaustion. Another powerful approach is to focus on outcomes instead of circumstances. When you feel upset or stressed, ask yourself, does this situation affect the results that matter most? If the answer is no, you can let it go. If yes, direct your energy towards solutions rather than dwelling on the problem. Stabilizing emotions requires shifting from reactive thinking to proactive focus. Energy spent ruminating on things that do not contribute to meaningful outcomes is waste. Reframing perspective in this way allows your mind to remain steady and purposeful. It is also helpful to practice mental rehearsal. Visualize how you want to respond in situations that normally trigger strong emotion. Imagine maintaining calm, making rational decisions, and aligning actions with what matters most. The brain cannot easily distinguish between vivid visualization and actual experience, so repeated practice strengthens emotional resilience. When these triggers occur in real life, your mind and body have already rehearsed a composed, focused response, reducing impulsivity and stress. Another key aspect is controlling attention. The mind will naturally gravitate toward what is negative, dramatic, or urgent. Stabilizing emotions requires consciously redirecting attention to what is constructive, valuable, and meaningful. This could be goals, relationships, personal growth, or long-term planning. By consistently choosing where your attention goes, you weaken the influence of fleeting disturbance. Emotional stability grows as your focus strengthens on priorities instead of distractions. Developing reflective habits enhances stability. Taking time daily to review your experiences, thoughts, and emotions helps you identify patterns, triggers, and areas for improvement. Reflection is not about self-criticism, it is about understanding and alignment. When you regularly evaluate whether your emotional responses match what really matters, you gain insight into your automatic reaction. Awareness combined with reflection strengthens your ability to pause, assess, and act intentionally, which is the hallmark of emotional control. Stabilizing emotions also requires practicing acceptance. Life is unpredictable, and not everything will go according to plan. People will act unpredictably, circumstances will change, and unexpected challenges will arise. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It means acknowledging reality without unnecessary resistance. When you accept what is beyond your control, you conserve energy for what you can influence. Emotional stability is closely tied to the ability to differentiate between what you can change and what you cannot, allowing calmness to prevail even in chaos. Mindfulness is another practical tool. Paying attention to the present moment without judgment allows you to experience life as it is, rather than as your fears, regrets, or assumptions suggest it should be. Many emotional spikes occur when the mind drifts into imagined problems or revisits past failures. Mindfulness grounds you in the now and reduces unnecessary emotional turbulence. It strengthens your capacity to respond deliberately and stay aligned with what truly matters. Breathing and body awareness also play a critical role. Emotions often manifest physically as tension, rapid heartbeat, or shallow breathing. By monitoring these signs, you can intervene early. Simple breathing exercises, posture adjustments,
and relaxation techniques help calm the nervous system and create space for rational thought. Stabilizing emotions is not only a mental practice, but a physiological one. The body and mind are interconnected, and training both strengthens your ability to remain composed. It is also essential to prioritize meaningful relationships. Emotional instability often stems from investing energy in people or interactions that are draining, superficial, or toxic. Focusing on relationships that support, inspire, and challenge you positively reinforces emotional balance. When you surround yourself with individuals aligned with your values and who encourage growth, emotional disturbances have less influence. Choosing connections wisely creates an environment that naturally stabilizes your feelings. Another important strategy is to develop a system of reminders, daily prompts, journals, or notes that emphasize what truly matters. Keep your priorities front and center. In stressful moments, these reminders act as anchors, helping you reorient your mind and stabilize reaction. Habits and routines that reinforce focus on significant goals reduce the likelihood of being swept away by temporary emotions. The more consistent the reminders, the stronger your emotional foundation becomes. Stabilizing emotions also requires learning to let go of perfectionism. Expectations that everything should be ideal create unnecessary emotional spikes when reality does not comply. By accepting imperfection and focusing on what is essential rather than flawless, you reduce frustration, disappointment, and self-criticism. Emotional balance comes from distinguishing between what matters and what is irrelevant. Letting go of unrealistic standards clears mental space and preserves energy for priorities that truly impact your life. Gratitude is a powerful stabilizing force. Regularly acknowledging what you have, who supports you, and the progress you have made shifts focus from what is lacking or negative to what is meaningful and positive. Gratitude reinforces perspective, making minor irritations and setbacks feel less significant. This practice strengthens resilience and anchors emotions in appreciation rather than chaos. When your mind is tuned to value what matters, negative emotional fluctuations diminish naturally. Another aspect is goal orientation. Clearly defined goals act as filters for emotional energy. When faced with challenges or provocations, ask whether your reaction supports your goals. This question aligns behavior with priorities and reduces emotional distraction. Stabilizing emotions requires constant reference to purpose. Decisions driven by meaningful objectives create calmness, focus, and consistent energy, in contrast to reactive responses driven by transient feelings or external pressures. Self-compassion also strengthens emotional control. Many people destabilize themselves through harsh self-criticism or unrealistic expectations. Treating yourself with understanding and patience during challenging moments preserves emotional equilibrium. Recognize that imperfection, mistakes, and setbacks are part of growth. Emotional stability grows when you replace judgment with reflection, learning, and gentle correction. Compassion for yourself reinforces focus on meaningful outcomes rather than temporary frustrations. Physical health supports emotional stability as well. Nutrition, exercise, and rest directly influence mood, energy, and mental clarity. Emotional reactions are amplified when the body is depleted or stressed. Investing time in maintaining physical well-being provides a foundation for emotional regulation. Your mind and body operate as one system, and attention to both ensures steadiness under pressure. Another effective approach is perspective shifting. Step back and ask yourself, will this matter in a week, month, or year? Most triggers that upset you temporarily have little long-term significance. Reminding yourself of the bigger picture allows emotions to settle and prevents disproportionate reactions. Perspective acts as a filter, helping you distinguish between immediate disturbances and genuine priority. This awareness is essential for maintaining calm and focus. Stabilizing emotions requires proactive problem solving rather than rumination. When issues arise, focus on actionable steps instead of dwelling on negative thought. Emotional energy is preserved and directed toward constructive outcomes. Acting instead of reacting transforms anxiety and frustration into purpose and control. This approach strengthens resilience and reinforces alignment with meaningful priority. Daily reflection, intentional focus, mindfulness, gratitude, physical care, perspective, goal orientation, and proactive action together create a framework for emotional stability. Over time, these practices compound, transforming the way you experience life. Emotional turbulence decreases, clarity increases, and decision-making improves. You gain control over your energy, responses, and focus, allowing consistent alignment with what truly matters. Ultimately, stabilizing emotions by reminding yourself of what really matters is about reclaiming control over your life. It is about separating the essential from the trivial, choosing focus over distraction, and prioritizing clarity over chaos. Every thought, action, and response becomes intentional. Emotional energy is conserved for growth, meaningful relationships, and goals that shape your life positively. Stability allows you to live with confidence, composure, and purpose. By consistently centering on what matters, you create a life where emotional resilience, clarity, and personal power are not optional. They are the foundation of every decision, action, and success you achieve.